Guess I'll just wait here. Hello.
Hi, how you going?
Good, thanks. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, Janet. What faculty are you from?
IML.
Okay, excellent.
So I'll be making notes.
Sounds good. Hi, Oliveira. You're on mute at the moment.
Which is very useful for me, you know. Good to see you, James.
Yeah, you too. You too.
How is your world?
It's going all right. It's a bit easier this session, actually. Everything's you know, more in place.
Yes, yeah, all of us are finding this session a bit easier.
Yep.
Kit is our host.
Hey, Kathy.
Hello, you guys are early. I just trying to get my slides nice.
It is okay.
Let's see. We're almost ready to start, but no, we're still waiting. And our two guests. Oh, Janet. None of you have met Janet, I don't think. Do you want to give a wave, Janet? So she's working in the ops team. Yeah, your ops team is part of IML, and they're the admin support team, and so she's going to take minutes. Actually, I'm recording this meeting, if that's okay with you guys, so that we can just, for people who are missing it, because we don't often get. I quite actually like the plan of this session where we're actually doing two different things and we're sharing, and we might be quite tight with time. So, but I think everyone in the room knows each other, so we're just waiting for our other guests. Maybe I've got some. Alicia's coming in. Hi, Alicia. Oh, here we are. Judy is coming in. We've got quite a few coming to this meeting today. It's all going on. As I walked in, opened the door, well, whatever you say when you come into Zoom. You were talking about how positive things are going, James and Oliveira. Yeah?
Yeah.
It's working well this semester. Yeah.
It's worse. We've got a better idea what we're doing, I suppose.
Sorry. You what? A better idea?
Yeah, of what we're doing. It's a bit easier to balance everything.
Yeah. Okay, well, I can see Michelle's here, and we're still waiting for our other guests. Oh no, Alicia's here too. Alicia's. So there's two Alicias. There's Alicia Percy and Alicia Bailey. So so what I might just do is go around the room and people can share what their roles are, so that they meet Michelle and Alicia Bailey. I think you've all met Alicia Percy before.
I think someone snoring. Is there someone snoring somewhere there?
No, they're doing our building.
Oh, okay.
So I've moved cities. I'm in Queensland.
Oh, all right.
And in Balmain, I had building work, and now here, level 7. I'm on level 10, and I'm on right at the end. But somehow I can hear every building, every person in this building is hearing the vibration. So sorry about the snoring.
Oh, no worries.
Okay, James, I'll talk to each person as I see them on the screen. I know you all see it differently to the screen. So James, can you just introduce yourself quickly, just who you are, what faculty, and your role? Yeah.
Yep. So I'm from the UTS Business School, first year experience coordinator there with Simon. And so, yeah, we look after first year experience in the business school.
Okay. And you teach accounting as your main subject?
Yeah, first year accounting at the moment. That's right.
A long while. Olivera, please.
Hello, I'm Olivera, FFYE, first year experience coordinator and the proud mentor of many early career researchers and students.
Yes. So we're no longer first year coordinators. We're first year
Experience
and
and
further year transition experience coordinators. Because the
okay.
program has moved beyond FYE, it's now FFYE. And because you are the transition coordinators, as distinct from my role, you have a T in your name, so transition. We're thinking how we can rearrange that name to something like transition or something, but at the moment it's FFYTE.
I think it speaks much better to the role that we have, because first and further year coordinators are in the years of our students sound as we are coordinating first year subjects. So they don't really recognize it as a very
So transition in, through and out, which is what the role, we do, the concepts there. All right, so keep moving around. David, please. I know you're not here that long, so yes.
No, I've managed to rearrange some appointments so I can be here for the whole time. My name is David. I'm from the Student Services Unit. I work in the counselling service, and my specific role is the learning skills counsellor. So I work with students primarily in the kind of academics, performance meets psychological space.
Yes.
And I do quite a bit of stuff in orientation as well around, generic study skills orientation to actually doing university activities as the academic side of university activities.
Skills, academic skills, yes, excellent. Francis, please.
Hi, I'm just going to say I'm the transition coordinator.
Good.
And I used to be Director of Students for the law faculty, so that's a pastoral care role, but now I'm Director of Courses, which is a bit like pastoral care for the academics. But the bottom line is I'm working out timetabling for classes and for academics and workload. But it's good to see both sides. And what I might also mention is that generally, I think the university as a whole has been pleased by the way our students were able to manage the transition from face-to-face to online quickly, so in a week. But no doubt there's quite a few students who've fallen off a cliff. And I know from the students applying for leave of absence, for withdrawal, that it's had a big impact on quite a few of our students, and it's hidden because the balance of them did better than we expected. Is that fair to say, David?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I was just trying to unmute myself. Yeah, I'd agree with that overall, and I think because I've had conversations with Tyler and Alicia as well, that would be true. The vast majority of students have actually managed the transition to the remote delivery better than we would have expected, but then there are lots of students, particularly with vulnerabilities, in the cracks, if not fallen through the cracks.
Okay, so we're really moving into Alicia's area, which is around engagement. So the first two speakers didn't get a chance to say that, James and Olivera. Do you want to add something, given that we've got a half an hour to look at engagement, and then Alicia can come in and introduce herself at the end of it all. James, do you want to add a little bit about engagement?
So in terms of engagement with, if you could just clarify, sorry, Kathy.
Around the COVID, around the new environment here.
Well, yeah, I suppose it's ongoing because, I think in terms of engagement with COVID, I suppose it's affected obviously substantially how we teach and some of the different strategies, how we run the classes, the different types of direction we provide students, say within Zoom tutorials, to make sure, you know, they have their webcams on so we can see them if they do have the connection available, so we can discuss. We can see, you know, as we would in the classroom, see those students and discuss their issues in more detail with them. You know, supporting the tutors in terms of you know, helping them through. A lot of them are very, you know, isolated at the moment, so they can provide the support and they're aware of the resources that we provide to help with engagement along the way.
Yeah, and you're using different technologies. Yeah, so just before I go to Olivera, Simone, I might bring you in here. Do you want to add your other side of business, of how, given that you're the academic language, I mean, you're just been to a meeting on academic learning advisors. You're the transition coordinator, and you're another side, management side, aren't you?
Yep, so I work with James as the co-coordinator in the business faculty. I have, sorry, I've got a little person with me as well. We're working hard to try to address some of these issues in terms of student engagement moving to the online space. I'm in management. I've also, my subjects have brought in the Opella test as well. And trying to navigate the English language process as well as you know, general curriculum troubles that students have has been, you know, a priority of mine in the large first year subject there. Yeah.
So the two of you, well, I'll bring this up for discussion. Olivera, do you want to just
I'd like to share another perspective, because we also are doing our best to look after our students through individual teachers, be it lecturers or professors. And I have noticed that we are very much engaged in knowledge sharing that goes beyond content, because we are discussing strategies, how we can look after students. So we are doing our best to look after students who are actually allocated in classes, but we have a very large cohort of HDR students, of PhD students, and these students do not have formal classes. And for them, this experience is even more challenging, because they don't have a cohort, they don't have regular classes to go to. They rely on their supervisors, and to them, supervisors are the only world they see. So what we have done, and this is something that we are very proud of, all of us, we started our teams for our HDR students, and we have over 800 of them in the faculty. And initially it was a very small group of students in my school, which is professional practice and leadership. Then students brought each other in, so it became PPL, HDRs and friends. And then all of a sudden, and I think the word got around, and you know, students felt the need to belong somewhere. We now have a very large cohort of people who contribute, who find each other in this community, and we managed to keep them going, which is incredible, because for some of these people, they're stuck in Australia, and I suspect that they don't even have proper food. Because they lost their employment, and it's really, really hard. So we provided this environment where we try our best to look after them, regardless of which faculty they belong to, or we belong to, and to manage this transition, which is for them life transition, because their parents are also very, very worried, because they
so Finance has got money for international students, and they'll provide.
Yes. And when we also have, we make them aware, but we also post messages to actually encourage them, because, you know, making them aware is very important. But saying to them, or some of us who students know, saying to them, look, it is okay to ask for help. In personalizing what our wonderful university is doing in many ways, so they don't feel stigma or shame, and we also encourage them to look after each other and reach out to other students. And, you know, we do it in a way that we say we are all in this together, and rather than us taking the other side and educating them, because they can find information and they're fine with, you know, communication they receive, but it's a different kind of care and community building.
So relationship, you're actually welcoming, and we had a little a session last week with Indigenous elder, and she said supporting each other, holding hands, being there to support, and I think that's a really nice way of looking at it. I'll keep going with the transition coordinators. Sam, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Sam Donnelly. I'm working in the School of Architecture, and I'm currently the FFYE coordinator for DAB, which is Design, Architecture and Building. I teach only in the architecture school though, and in mostly first and second year courses. And so I've been also working with Aurora on the Opella and literacy programs with the first years, which has been great.
So for other people, Aurora is Aurora Murphy, and she's an academic language and learning person in IML, and Sam has had first year grants and first and further year grants around that work as well, in developing that further. Yeah. So Nick, please.
Sorry, just unmuting myself. Hi everyone. I'm Nick. I'm a lecturer in international studies in the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. I'm also the first and further year experience coordinator or transition coordinator in our faculty. And I don't have too much else to say. Like, I mean, I think what Olivera was saying was kind of where we are at in FAST as well. So I suppose we're kind of in that stage now of the year where we're really, we've gone through the beginning of the pandemic, but now we're at this stage. It's like, okay, this is definitely going to be impacting on the teaching and learning side of things from 2021 going forward. And I think everyone is kind of, I suppose, hasn't really sunk into a lot of the academic stuff yet, all these kind of changes. So I suppose what we're trying to, see is like, how can we, I suppose, rearrange, change our subjects and the way we kind of deliver content and the way we kind of, our mode of delivery, while at the same time maintaining quality and a good student, a good quality experience for students. So that's kind of where we're at the moment, and it's quite stressful for everyone. And I suppose my contribution to the conversation is that I'm really kind of concerned for especially for our first years, but also for further years as well, because, we're kind of encouraged to now be kind of innovative and to try to find different ways of delivering kind of subjects. But I'm concerned if, we have too many different approaches and we become kind of too innovative for our first years, and it might have a negative impact on mental health and a lot of, just in general with the student experience.
Yeah, and you work with the Orange Group, Big Brother.
So in terms of the belonging and the things that Olivera was talking about, we've had a huge kind of interest in our student societies, I think more than in recent years, despite the fact that they can't actually meet each other in person and it's all kind of shifted online. So students have been seeking that belonging anyway. And so we're quite lucky in our faculty that we have two very kind of strong societies that kind of reach out to students. One of them in particular also does a mentoring program called Big Orange, Little Orange. So you know, students in the 3rd or 4th years are mentoring first-year students. So that's kind of really working as well. And in terms of my role, I've also kind of been working with, I suppose, with the marketing team. So trying to get to the students, you know, right, what, you know, so for example, at the beginning of spring, I was kind of working with the orientation program and with our marketing department to kind of see if we can kind of highlight these kind of issues to students right from the beginning. So I think that's kind of like a, you know, lots of kind of synergies there between my role and the kind of orientation role that's already happening. So that's been working well as well.
That's good. Ashley, please, science.
Hey, I'm Ash. I'm the coordinator for science. I'm a bit of a pick and mix. I'm first and further years experience coordinator. I am actually the academic misconduct officer for science. I also teach in 6 subjects across the academic year, and I am actually a PhD student myself. So I am across a lot of stuff, actually, more so than what I thought I'd ever would be, but I'm absolutely loving it. In terms of contributions, I take a bit of a different stance with COVID. I mean, I help with my HDR students in the sense that science has actually set up a HDR society in itself that supports HDR students. And of course, I've been helping various subject coordinators and course coordinators try and figure out ways to incorporate as many students as possible in different subjects to kind of ensure that they feel included and also to ensure that they don't necessarily feel behind academically, not just socially, but I think academically it puts a lot of strain when kids feel like they can't catch up, then everything kind of stops. So we've looked at a few different things there, which has actually been quite good. But also in terms of teaching, I think I'm a little bit of a mixed bag here in the sense of, I know that some of you said that it's actually easier this semester because we're kind of used to what's going on with the expectation. But for example, a class that I'm teaching, I'm expected to teach both in person, like physically there for a workshop for the students that turned up, but also be all entirely mic'd up and somewhat attached to a computer to then teach live online whilst in person. So it's then like a dual pronged class, and it's as the Japanese would say, omoshiroi desu ne. It's very interesting.
Very, very difficult. You need a lot of
Yes.
training to be able to do both.
Yeah, it's look, I'm getting very good at running. I'm realizing, so it's good cardio workout. So exercise is good for the brain and the mood, they say. But it's yes, it is interesting.
So from the student's experience point of view, people online see a part of you, and the people in the class see all of you, and then sharing that way. Is it, Ashley?
Sorry. I'm also mic'd up the whole time, so I've got those little mic packs, and so I run around and try and with students that have either said something online, I reiterate their question and then present it, or for students who said something in class, you've got to reiterate the question for those online. So it's a lot of kind of double backing and repetition. But I mean, so far I'm lucky in the sense that this particular class, it's a 3rd year class, and because I teach 1st, 2nd and 3rd year, a lot of them have had me already, so they know kind of how I teach and what I'm like, and you know, they understand catering to both is a bit interesting in itself. But it's definitely, I didn't actually expect that I'd have to be doing a 2-pronged teaching scenario in one class.
Yeah, I don't think too many are doing your level, so thank you.
No problems.
Carla.
I associate lecturer in Faculty of Transdisciplinary Innovation. It's been pretty interesting, I guess. We ran 3 subjects, which are usually face-to-face for full-time for 2 weeks over the winter period. We had up to 400 students in one of them. But we actually had our lowest dropout rate that we've ever had, which is interesting. So, yeah, I think engagement in terms of engaging in the class, it's actually been quite good. As we're now shifting into the spring semester, most of the focus is on our like third year or fourth year students. And similar to Ash, we are doing blended kind of delivery, which is, again, a whole new ball game. And yeah, it's tricky. We've got a pretty decent setup in Building 15, which is great. In terms of students, I think if you were to describe it in one word, it's basically just overwhelmed. Just with they're about to graduate and they have no clue what's happening or what could be happening in the next few months. And that transition out of university is probably going to be one of the trickiest that they've come across.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Working on those skills. Yeah. Okay, we'll come back to that. Judy, do you want to tell us about health?
Sorry, I've been keeping my monitor off because we're swapping over to NBN. It's been dreadful. Anyone out there's done NBN? Yeah, it's been a challenge. So, hi everyone, I'm Judy. I am in the Faculty of Health. So I look after, it's a very, very big area. So it's School of Nursing and Midwifery, the School of Sports and Exercise and Rehabilitation, the School of Public Health and the Graduate School of Health. But I mainly, thanks Alicia, I mainly focus on the School of Nursing and Midwifery because that's by far the biggest cohort. And it has been very, very difficult couple of, or the year really. The main issues with our students, it's similar with all of you, engagement. But we also have the challenge of trying to get them through clinical placements. And we've had to postpone them for autumn semester, and now we're preparing to get them out on spring. Retention, it's interesting now with census being here. I've been keeping an eye on how many students are dropping off. We seem to have had a lot drop off in just this week. So that's, yeah, I've had lots of emails from students who are just not coping. They're wanting to go home. We've got a very large Chinese and Nepalese cohort within nursing and midwifery, particularly nursing. So it's been challenging for them. I think similar issues as everybody else, engagement, and also just supporting subject coordinators and teachers and our tutors, because we have now brought them students back into campus for labs, but they're only getting half the labs. So we're trying to condense 8 weeks worth of clinical hands-on teaching into 4 weeks. So that's challenging as well. And they haven't had that. So they didn't get any of that in autumn. So we're trying to catch them up. So yeah, lots of challenges, the same as everybody.
Yeah, sounds like you've got more because of the focus on you're in disciplines or in the industry straight off in year one in your subject areas, and education does the same, but there's not too many others that do that. So I think we've done all the first year coordinators. Georgina, do you want to introduce yourself and the engagement you see through UPass maybe?
I agree with Ash. The getting the leaders to go online without me actually understanding what UPass would look like online and how facilitation would work online last semester was very stressful. This semester, the stress has been trying to balance the university saying we are coming back to campus. We support a lot of first year science, first year nursing, first year engineering, where the students are coming on campus for a certain amount, but also the leaders not wanting to come on campus or not having, anyway, it's been a bit tricky, but it's all kind of ironed out. What we are finding in terms of what would be useful for this group is that students don't want to come to the face-to-face. Out of proportion, we've had to cancel the face-to-face classes versus the online because UPass is an optional study session. So if they can do it in Zoom, that, suits them better and they don't have to risk, being around other people. yeah, but the problem with that, of course, is that it is so much harder to get students to feel comfortable and talk to each other in a Zoom thing, particularly when they don't want to turn on their cameras and maybe can't. Like, I'm not saying that everybody has the equipment or the broadband, whatever that's called. So yeah, it's been interesting. I've seen some really good. I've been watching observing leaders. We do that as part of our quality management, and some leaders are really getting group engagement happening, but the vast majority are ending up being lecturers, which of course is not what we want. We want the students to practice and to learn and do the materials in the UPass. So yeah. I'm firmly convinced that UPass works better face to face. After many years of doing it face to face and this year of doing it online. We did train all our leaders in online tools like Jamboard and Menti and Kahoot, and a lot of them are using Google Docs to some effect. It would be great if Zoom could make the whiteboard more just better, really quite poor. So yeah, we're just working with that. But yeah, it's interesting. I kind of had to push really hard on my bulletin that I send out to say what we want to do is create engagement and what we want to do is create connection, because the students need that more than any learning at the moment. Everyone is lonely and isolated and miserable. And I mean, that includes me. I live on my own. Yeah, it's a struggle because you get a lot of the leader to the student engagement, but you don't get a lot of the student to student engagement. The primary way we try to do that is to do groups, but sometimes when you allocate people into groups in Zoom, they just leave, they just leave. You've got to be really clear about what you want them to do. You've got to be really clear on the pacing and the level that you're asking them to fill out. So there's lots of challenges. I'm not saying I'm not enjoying it, because I kind of am, but super hard, yeah.
Yeah, and your team works on lots of activities, innovative activities, but it's face-to-face, and so it's building that knowledge in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I might bring on Jemima, how the library's going in a broader sense, and then Alicia will be looking at it slightly differently.
Well, like everyone, I think we transitioned to teaching online quite well, because we've been building up those skills for a long time now. Engagement, I'm not 100% sure how engagement compares. I would say engagement for us is comparing reasonably well, because we have varying degrees of engagement, as you can imagine, with library content. Some students don't find it relevant or think it's a bit boring or whatever, but there's been, I don't think, any call for us to do face-to-face classes at all this session. The library itself there are students here. Generally the campus is not as busy as, I know Shirley in her email said it's, there's 10% of the expected students on campus, and I'd say it's probably the same for the library. It's certainly not buzzing, but there are actually quite a lot of students in here studying.
Yeah,
we do a lot of our engagement through training and through our services.
Modules, and they use your website, and you've developed that.
They chat. They use chat. They use our chat service, so we're very engaged there.
Yeah.
And as far as engagement through training goes, I think it's probably hard for us to say, because we don't have students in an ongoing manner. We just have them once, and then they're gone.
Yeah, linking in with the subject coordinators would be good to know.
Yeah, that's right.
Amanda, do you want to tell us about equity?
Hi everyone, I am Amanda. I'm with the Centre for Social Justice and Inclusion, and I look after schools recommendation scheme coming into the university, as well as the humanitarian scholarship program, which we are supporting 31 students this year. We surveyed our scholarship students at the end of last session, because like everyone else, everything was just so brand new, and how we were supporting them. We wanted to make sure that we were doing the right thing in terms of is it too much? Are we asking too much of you? Is this, are the weekly Wednesdays too much? And we were really quite surprised that they just wanted all of it. So there are a number of different engagements. So we meet with the students twice before census date, and then kind of after that mid-semester break, just so that we know that they're on track and if there's anything that they need to drop. So they basically telling us that they value all of those interactions, but we also ask them, you know, is there anything that they would like to see more of? And we weren't surprised when they kind of came back and said that they want to see more of group interactions and seeing more students. So, you know, definitely what you're talking about, Georgina, as well. And so we've taken all of that information, and we will are creating kind of drop-in events, which are, yes, it's a way that we can kind of touch base with them, but also that are kind of intentional. So they've said things like they want to know, you know, a little bit more about UTS careers. So we'll invite someone from UTS careers to come in and chat with them, and perhaps, you know, have some sort of exercise around, you know, LinkedIn, creating LinkedIn profiles, that sort of stuff. So I think really we're just trying to make it as student-centered as possible and do everything that we need to do to ensure that they are succeeding and feeling okay about their studies. We have had one student who has asked for a leave of absence, and we completely, you know, understand that. We know that there are lots of students across the university who are also asking for this. The nature of the scholarship is always really difficult because it's a scholarship, and so we've had to kind of go back and re-look at the conditions of award and, you know, get the provost to okay all of that, which they've largely been really supportive of. I think we probably would have, you know, kicked up a bit of a fuss if they weren't supportive of it. You know, but it's the same sort of stuff. They have concerns around, you know, coming into uni as well. I was really surprised because I thought that they, as much as they want to see other students, they're really worried about, you know, getting on that train and coming onto campus, despite, you know, us saying that actually there's all of the stuff that's going on in terms of social distancing on campus and, you know, keeping the campus, you know, clean. But and so we've worked with a couple of them who didn't have their class, or, you know, there was something going on with one of their tutorial or one of their lectures, they had to come on campus. And so we spoke to Francis, who was really great about it, and said, actually, there's been such a huge request from students to have this. So they ended up having it online anyway. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, and we're kind of just trying to work to support them as much as we can. But the other things we're thinking about, you know, for next year is the new cohort that's coming in, which what we are a little bit concerned about, especially because, particularly with the schools recommendation scheme students, because we're looking at different admission criteria, we're looking at different things that, you know, together with the so we're looking at things like their year 11 results as a way to make offers as well if they have potentially bombed out in year 12. So because with SRS we have access to that, so thinking about the support that they might need next year coming in is something that we're kind of really trying to bed down and make sure we have a really, really good support mechanism around those students when they come in next year. So
okay,
I'm really hoping they'll be more resilient. Maybe I'm naive.
Yeah, I hope so as well.
Well, there are things that they're gaining that will be helping them in workplaces when they go out to work. But Alicia, do you want to come in now and explain your role, and then the student hub, and then what you noticed? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Alicia. Some of you I've definitely met before. Some of you have been my boss before. And some of you have probably never seen me at all before. So can I just get a quick, show of hands, either physically or via reaction, as to who has heard of the Student Learning Hub before? Yes, that's very exciting for me, because I was under the impression nobody knew who we were. So we are, as of last week, officially a year old. We're a 2027 project. I'm going to launch into something that sounds like a sales spiel now, because it's quite practiced. So there's three main aspects of the Student Learning Hub. The first one is we're a peer-to-peer service point. So we hire Student Learning Hub guides. They're the ones in the green shirts, and our job is largely to triage students to the right service. So when a student comes to us and asks a question, we will tell them where they can get their answer from, and we will help them navigate to what we call a tier 2 service so that they can access that help, bypassing, like, as much as possible, bypassing an initial query point. So when they come to us, we'll go, okay, well, this is how you make an appointment, and we'll guide them through that, instead of going, well, you need to contact these people and off you go when you're on your own. So our philosophy is very much around like supporting them through to, because they wouldn't ask us the question if they weren't worried. And a lot of the time they ask us the question because the self-help resources that are out there don't give them the human touch that they need. The second part of the hub is around digital literacy skills. So we are about to launch a 5-workshop program of digital literacy content that's supported by Microsoft, which is very exciting. I can't send you any links at the moment because we've only just confirmed. But we run activations throughout the semester based on the student learning journey that we understand. So we develop a journey map at the beginning of every session, and we update it on a weekly basis, feeding in information that we get from students and also information that we get from other service points around the university. So we have a weekly, fortnightly meeting with the main inquiry like the main inquiry points on campus and online. And we coordinate answering those questions, making sure everybody's aware and up to date of what's going on, so that students are getting consistent responses across those service points. Because like, then I can imagine you've all had a student come to you and say, but this person said this, and then this person said this, and I don't know what the right answer is. And now I'm really cranky and confused and quite upset because this is more important to me than it is to anybody else. So we try to make that message really consistent for students. And we have a continuous improvement loop built into that. I won't go on for much longer, but there's lots of stuff that we do, and I have a little presentation that I had put together that I don't think I'll inflict on you all, but I will send along the slide deck because it's got some links in it. So what we're noticing with student engagement is very similar to what a lot of you have said. Students are really interested in genuine connection with each other. We're also finding that they're interested in genuine connection with services. So like self-help stuff is fine, and we're doing a lot of work in that area so that students don't get confused enough to ask a question to start with. But sometimes a student asks a question not because they need to know the answer, but because they need to talk to a person. And so we're trying our best to provide that service to them as well, and that's part of the Student Learning Hub Guide's role. We also run the Ask a Student chat. So I'm sure you've all seen the supporting online study pages that are up on the website that have recently been updated to be even better. But that's how they would navigate to the Ask a Student chat, where they can then chat online live with a Student Learning Hub Guide as well, which is quite cute. So the Student Learning Hub Guide at the moment is down there in the hub, both answering face-to-face questions and madly typing on chat when we get a question. They are very good at multitasking. But what we're noticing as well is that engagement online is very much when they engage with us online, it's not because they have a need for connection, it's because they have a problem right here, right now, and they really need an answer. So we're getting very different kinds of queries online and face-to-face. But what we've noticed in those conversations that we're having with inquiry points is that students they're not asking questions with the same veracity that they would in the past. We're not seeing them being quite as curious. And I think that might be related to some of the mental health outcomes that we've all sort of touched around, that sense of connection to UTS and maybe a disengagement with studies generally. So I approached Kathy and was like, is this what the experience is in classes around, are we finding students less engaged, less interested, less curious? Or does it feel the same? Is it just an impression that we're getting out of nowhere, or is it something that can be substantiated, I guess, across
I
the
think for science, the subjects that I teach in, it's a two-pronged thing. Some students are so burned out on reading, you know, because they obviously enjoy listening. And I think when you're in a lecture, you will listen to it even if you're not actually paying attention to it, where reading requires attention to be given. So I've noticed in my classes, it was a bit of a two-pronged thing where they were actually either asking more questions via email, but what happened was that they were asking more questions via email that had been actually already discussed online or had already been sent out an email or put into an announcement on UTS Online. But because it's just more reading and more bombardment with stuff, that they're just kind of like, I don't want to read it. I'm just going to send an email and I'll get a response back when I get a response back. And then it's also been the opposite where, like you say, some students are like, it will happen, I'll figure it out, so I won't bother sending an email because I'm sure somewhere else I'll be told. So it's a two-pronged thing. It depends on the student, also depends on the subject and how burnt out they are from their other subjects and reading or not reading, or how well they do reading or not reading. But overall, from all my roles, whether it's misconduct, first and further, teaching or anything, there's definitely email burn is real.
Okay, I'm going to have to call it quits. And then I think if you could feedback some more comments to email Alicia,
yeah,
or put it on the chat. Like we've only got 15 minutes left, so we did talk about a lot of stuff. I know I didn't bring Alicia Percy into the conversation, but Alicia will come in a minute. Yeah. Can I introduce? So thank you, Alicia Bailey, and thank you everyone for that input. So if we just move in quickly to see Michelle and how what's Michelle's role and around international education and perspectives, and then we've got some little slides that we could show you if we have time. You're on silent here.
Apologies. Thanks so much for the invitation. Our role at UTS International is actually to bring the students in, and then once the students arrive, they tap into all of the services at the university. So firstly, I'm really impressed with all of the work that you're all doing, because unfortunately we don't get to engage with the students on a daily basis once they've started, apart from our student services team. And so it's just really wonderful to see all the dedication from everyone out there, making sure that the students have got access to information and that they're feeling supported. And it's been really, really difficult because, as you can imagine, both domestic and international students have lost work. Some of them have become homeless, and there's all sorts of issues that they're facing. And so our team has been communicating with continuing students through various mediums with the MCU team. So it's really good to get a bit of an update of what's happening on the ground too, so that we can capture that in the content. But I guess what we're also concerned about too is just making sure that the students that we are recruiting, and particularly if they're coming from different channels, that they are engaging across the university, that we're retaining them, and that they're performing well and, you know, integrating with the university. And so that's why I've kept in contact with Kathy over the years, just to kind of get an understanding of what's happening for our international students. And so when she mentioned this meeting, I just wanted to get a feel for what you're discussing and then work out who in the international team is going to be best placed to engage with you, so that we can make sure that we're getting to the right students at the right time and helping them to find all of the services and to ensure that they feel part of the community and that they can succeed in their studies. Because it's no point us bringing in whole lots of students that are not going to be able to then benefit from what they've paid for. But I guess because everything is online, that's added an enormous burden on these particular students, because they've come here for a face-to-face experience, both with other international students and our domestic students. It's not what they've received this year, but we know from conversations we've had with lots of students that they're so appreciative of all of the teaching staff that have really reached out to assist them, but there's potentially other things that we could be doing. And being looped into your community just allows us to know what's happening so that we can guide the students to the right places.
And maybe you giving us ideas of where you see things, what the students are saying they want, as well as what we see. So you've got different touch points. And Alicia with her touch points there, I think we can actually grow this. The students, the international students, once they stay in the first year, they do so much better. And the same with the domestic students. Once we get them past that first year, they're so much better in their pass rates. And so that was some of the data I'd like to show you. But have you any questions of Michelle before I do that? No one? Okay. Yes, Jemima?
What kind of faculty engagement? I mean, you say you don't work directly with the students. What kind of faculty engagement do you have?
Well, the main thing is that once the students are enrolled at UTS, then they just tap into all of the central services at UTS, apart from a couple where students might need a completion letter or information around student visas, etc. And then we have some sponsored students where we have some ongoing interaction. And there are various people across our teams that engage with the students, particularly study abroad and exchange. But we don't, once the students are engaged in the faculties, we're not engaged in their learning process or anything like that. So we don't have a lot of input into what happens once the students are here.
They don't come back and ask for help and kind of establish any kind of a relationship beyond that.
Well, it's very difficult for us to do so. So there will be students who come into our offices on a regular basis, and so they would be known to a number of our staff, but really they're mainstreamed. And so a bit like the student learning hub, that when we do get students contacting us, then we will kind of direct them to the best place to go to find out information. But we're not engaged in their learning journey per se. We can provide advice if they're looking at withdrawing from subjects and things to make sure that they don't breach their visas, but we don't have that face-to-face engagement on a regular basis.
James, you have a question.
Yeah, my observation is that there certainly seems to be some international students that may be struggling more than they were before. I think that there's a number of factors here. Obviously, they don't have the support network that they previously had because they're away from campus. I also think that some students, their English language skills were lacking before. The fact is when they come to campus, when they come to Australia, they're then forced to communicate more in English. I think some students may have deferred their studies as a result of COVID, have been out of the system a little while. They haven't had the opportunity to continue to practice, their communication skills, and they've slipped back a bit. I've observed a couple of students in my classes that really what I would deem as well below standard. I spoke to one of them today at the end of the tutorial individually. And she told me she studied at InSearch previously, did an English language course there, then, didn't do any studies for, I think, 6 months or so, and enrolled in the spring session. And, based on the English language, the way she was communicating, it was, she really had no idea. She was absolutely lost, and so I think this is potentially quite a widespread issue that is part of our position here, and within this group, something that I think we need to action, really.
Yeah, I was at an accessibility meeting where the people were talking about the international students feeling very lost, and being in breakout rooms, they, like Georgina said, they might go away or they just don't participate. And someone at the meeting from business actually said, well, maybe we're just exposing more of the points by being in the Zoom environment, and students, the academics are really coming face to face with the real issues. But I think, Michelle, you said we had a lot more students coming in this spring semester to those who came in first in autumn, is that right?
No, probably picking up more on what James has said is that we had quite a number of students who withdrew, sorry, not withdrew, but well, actually there was a number of students who deferred from autumn session, and there was also a number of students who decided to take leave of absence after the first session. And so a lot of those students, because we've engaged with them during their leave of absence, a lot of them have chosen to come back in spring. I guess there's a number of factors. They've realised that irrespective of where they're going to be studying, that's probably going to be online. So they've re-engaged. But I think James's point is really important, is that the fact that they have been out of the loop for 6 months and potentially have been quite isolated. They've just lost 6 months of practice, and so they've got to rebuild that confidence and the ability to converse. And so it's actually a really important issue to highlight, I think, definitely.
So that won't happen in health, because health only brings people in the first semester. But in business it does, and I imagine FEIT, they're the two other big areas that have the international students. And James, you're talking about from a first year perspective or a transition into the university perspective. And Olivera, you were talking about students who were already in the system and you're reaching out to them in that way. Yes, I actually think, if Michelle, if you're a team member of your group would like to be part of our advisory group, we can gain for feedback, and maybe we can share backwards and forwards. I think that could be quite useful for us all.
Yeah, definitely.
Consider too. I've got some slides. Do you want to see the slides quickly to show you the data? I'll just move it to it. So can you, I need to share that, of course. Now, share. Slides, share. Okay. I'll just take you guys there. Somehow I've got to get your faces somewhere else. That just gives you enrollment ideas. But I think if we, the data that I was picking up from BI was is current, but it doesn't pick up the people who've come into this semester. So, oh wait a minute, we've got to do something else here. That data's up to be updated. But this is what I would like to show you. And this is where I'm comparing for the same period of time, the domestic students and the international students, and commencing and non-commencing. And I broke it over here so you could see how the students are working. So that table there is just split into two. This top one, I'll go to the bottom one because, oops. You'll see the, let me just pull you away from there. Our students, this line here, they're the commencing international students. And they're slowly improving, 86, 84, not significantly, but they've improved. But once they become past that first year, they keep going. They go very well. Not as high as the non-commencing domestic students, but they're doing well. And the same pattern happens with the domestic students. The key is keep them in first year. If we get them successful in the first year and they pass, you can see that they're and we're talking about big numbers of students here. So 93% versus 90%, that's a big difference in the students. Then we retain them. This is a picture of with those low data numbers that weren't updated, but I think my next slide shows you these broken out. You can see that the bottom line, the ones who are going the most are the domestic first years. They go much higher than the red line is the domestic. If they stay through, they'll stay and commit. Both the international will stay in. And in fact, the international commencing will stay in much higher. So if you ignore that little bit there. So I've got that on the next two graphs. Oh, no, I haven't actually. What I want to do is pick up a picture of what happens in first semester, in the first half of the year in their pass rate and the second half. I want to see if there was any difference. I can see that students, and so this is everyone who enrolls in the second semester. When I look at second half of the year, they may be new to this class. I haven't looked at, in this case, the commencing I don't think the system's smart enough, or maybe, it may be smart enough to pick up commencing as being those starting in that semester, second half of the year, of which you'll see the international commencing are coming across, but they've improved. I mean, I only can see the data to 2019. And the domestic, if it is that group, they're moving through. And the non-commencing are those who are already in there. Again, I'm not sure if the BI system looks at annually to say a person's commencing or at the point of time they're into a second subject, a second period. So until I get that clarification, I think probably you need to think of these as people in first year or in their first year of the university, and that could be that they're coming into second year subjects. And the non-commencing is they've done a full year at the university and they're moving ahead. Until I get that clarified, I can't do the change there. But you can see here those in the second semester, they're doing, the ones who are domestic non-commencing are really, really improving. And if you look at the international non-commencing, they're really improving, which is lovely to see. There's another dashboard that's existing and it's called the life cycle dashboard. The only difficulty I have with it is it's counting everybody who enrolls in the course, and if they drop out, they're still counted. So I've got a vision of everyone enrolled, and I was looking at overseas data. So everyone who's enrolled, but they could have dropped out, sitting there in the faculties, and you see there's a difference in the head counts. I've asked the group, this is a dashboard that's just getting generated now. It's for the courses group and other areas because it looks across all the faculties, but it's talking about, you'll see in the next one, pass rates, and I think it's not valid if we're looking at pass rates or admissions. So I can tell you this, the information I've got from the team that's working on it is just recent. So I made this slide before I did that, but if you take it with, and you know from your subject dashboard, I don't know if you use your subject dashboard, but it shows you the number of students enrolled, the number of students withdrawn, and it talks about the net number of students. But because this system hasn't refined that, census date doesn't come into the story. However, you can see that on international students, we do have a big lot of students coming across from InSearch, independently if they drop out or not. Yeah. And this is the other thing that dashboard will show you. It will show you, so in this case, I'm looking at dropping out, commencing overseas students in 2019. It just gives me a quick picture of which faculties are getting the head counts. And I can see the same for, I think, 220, just gives me an idea. And I do have others on, just stop sharing, on pass rates. But as I said, that data, while it's easy to pick up, BI has a problem, Business Intelligence System has a problem that it's only the last full year, the data. So this dashboard is picking up, like your subject dashboard, it picks up yesterday's data and you see it today. But the parameters are slightly not quite suitable for what we need. And I think Michelle might have gone, but that's the key. I mean, your feedback, it would be useful for you, I'd imagine, not to have the, it's certainly nice to know that you've got all these students who enrolled, but some reason they dropped out. What was the reason they dropped out? We've lost a lot of revenue. They've lost a lot of, maybe the subject or the courses they were going to take, because it was about courses, didn't match what their needs. And that, in some ways, that's good attrition, because students are making choices according to what their needs are. But in other ways, if we're going to look at overall pass rates and compare and look at, when I do the report, the annual report, which is going to be done soon, that sort of data has to come through. Thank you everyone for coming, and Janet for taking notes for us, and any feedback that you would like to bring to me for this meeting, or if you want to talk to me now, or I'll stay on a little bit, or if you want to put something in the chat.
Just with the international students and loneliness, with the conversation groups and other things that helps offers, I think we just are struggling to get through to the students. So I'd encourage you all to kind of keep, referring students to those, because I do think they're a wonderful source of kind of a connection and support, but reaching students is always hard. So
I mentor a student, and I'm the only English speaker this Vietnamese student is talking to. She's in law, Masters of Law.
Yeah.
She takes the tape we have, listens to it when she goes to sleep at night.
Yeah, I heard that, Kathy. It made me cry.
But I asked my daughter who was in Spain, she said, Mum, that's what you do. You just make sure you hear the sound all the time. And so you recognize the difference in the language. You know when you're making a mistake. But to me, it's very sad. So I'm reaching out to many people as I can to help this young lady. But
I'm also mentoring a student in the same situation. She's not allowed to leave her house because her parents won't let her. So she's sitting in this little flat only talking Chinese.
Yeah, so it's really sad. And so our next forum, if you can stay for just a few minutes, the next forum, we're looking at engagement. We were going to do the IGAs, but that didn't work out. It's going to be in the future. So looking at engagement, belonging online. So I want to draw from some of the things that happened today to bring it in. And Alicia, Bailey, you might be interested in that. Alicia, Percy and I will be thinking about ways of doing belonging and bringing that through. And some work on group work, I think, an online group work.
Kathy?
Yeah.
If we're going to be doing belonging, I think something that I've noticed is that we need to rethink belonging in the classroom, in the face-to-face classes as well, in the current context, not just online, because in one subject I'm coordinating, I have an online class and a face-to-face class.
Yeah.
And so I was really excited about going back and having that face-to-face class. But once you've got a limit in the amount of students in the class, they're all kind of socially kind of distancing group, you know what I mean? There's kind of security around, there's not many students on campus. So they're not getting that kind of same face-to-face experience that they were kind of getting before. So I've realized that I've had to rethink how I do my face-to-face classes this semester, based on kind of like, all these kind of circumstances.
Yes, so we could bring that into Nick. So would anyone in the team like to be involved in the forum? Involved if you've got time? Yeah, okay. Any academics have time? It's the 17th of September, so it's a break, and I think that's when.
Yeah, I'm on leave the week after, Kathy, so I'm keen.
Is it school? Is that a school holiday week?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it is or not.
No. The school holidays is later, I think. That's before school holidays.
28th of September is the first day of the public school holidays.
Okay, so it's the week before. Oh, that's fabulous. So that means Simone might be around. Francis, you might be around.
I'll be on long service leave. I'm sorry, Kathy.
Oh, lucky you. Oh, you're not going anywhere though. You're not going to Italy.
I was originally going to Italy or France, but I'm not bitter. Now it's a staycation.
All right. Okay, well.
I was taking 6 weeks off and I was going to Africa where I was born, and I have not been since. So, I feel you, David. I really feel you.
All right. Well, maybe I'll get you together and think about a plan and come back to you and write to you all and see what you think. And I know Francisca Jade is interested in doing some work around group work, and I know Lucy Alan has done some nice work around the group work too, and stuff with the TDI and getting feedback, whether that fits in now or whether it's around the belonging. But picking up from what Alicia Bailey has said to us, that the engagement and the lack of engagement, and how do we reach out so those students stay. I mean, we've passed the census date. It's about how they engage. It sort of could build on from the feedback literacy one we did last time, where we're building a learning process in for them, the learning, but we're adding that relational. And then, in fact, that's a really critical part of student learning anyway, that relational and development further. So maybe we can build it around that.
The one thing which kind of came up today, there's a belonging project kind of kicking off through Equity and Diversity Unit. And so the one thing that I was discussing with Susan Hansen, she was working on the LX transformation stuff, is the services are doing a fantastic job on kind of trying to get as much awareness and engagement and connectivity as possible. But then where it starts to kind of break down is like, how do we actually engage that in the classroom?
Yeah.
Students spend their students' time at university is mostly in the class.
Yes.
Like,
all right. Well, maybe that's it. Maybe it's a partnership.
How do we start to look at that relationship?
Yeah.
Building those relationships in class.
Yeah. Okay. I think, like Jemima talking about all that work that's online, how's that connected into the classroom? Let's think about ways of doing that. Maybe it's Alicia's work. Maybe someone from accessibility or student services in David's area might like to talk about how that's built up. I mean, the ALO's meeting that I went this morning, they're certainly trying to get involved with the link is between the resources, the financial resources and the support resources around the person's well-being to manage their learning. And then the UPass, I mean, the helps as well. And
yeah, because like our group here, the ALOs are quite understanding of what services are available and how to get those into the classroom. But then it's across the different subjects, like different tutors and coordinators who don't have our level of understanding. How do we actually get them to connect with these services in a way that doesn't cut into time because it's precious, but allows all the students to be aware of what is there to connect with?
Yeah, so I met with a student from business who's trying to do a little app around all the services that are around. I'm connected with Georgina, I've connected with Alicia. She's talking with Abatia as well. She's looking at a whole lot of, because she says the thing that's the missing link for her in her studies, and I think she's in a 5th year, having passed through different courses and now in this one. That's the missing link of connecting. And I think we're all aware of that. But it's about bringing it into the classroom, embedding it in the classroom, isn't it? And joining it together. Careers are doing that with some of the work, I think.
Do you mind linking me in with that as well? With that student or Alicia?
Yeah, sorry?
Whoever, I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Her name is Olena, O-L-E-N-A, and then a big long Russian name, M something.
Oh, good.
I'll introduce you, Tyler. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, well, let's leave it at this, and I'll do quick thinking in the next day or two, and by next Monday I'll have something that we can talk about maybe. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thanks, Kathy.
See everyone.
Bye. Bye. Alicia, did you want to say something after all that?
Oh, it's okay. I'll talk to you later. But I think I was going to say something. It's all right. Talk to you later.
I cut Alicia off. I didn't give her the opportunity to speak. I'm sorry.
It's fine. Okay.
Thank you.
Kathy, just on that belonging stuff, I've got some slides I pulled together for a class on community in our 4th year, because we do a lot of that based on a lot of Brené Brown's work.
Let's look at that. Yeah.
So I really would like to, I think if we could focus on the designing in belonging, which we started at the end of last year, and kind of
designing in belonging. Yeah.
Yeah, designing in belonging. So it really is thinking about what we can do inside the curriculum, but also how we bring the teaching teams, get them involved in that. And
but also that partnership with the professional staff and all the support because students, while they're in the classroom, they are also got all this support outside the classroom, and seeing those dots is critical for a student and for the academic, because quite often they don't know about the stuff.
Tyler, what's Susan Hansen doing in the equity and diversity thing? What's her program?
Yeah, so where did it come from? I think jumping off the social cohesion, supporting online study portal, there was some kind of incentive to run a student-led project So we've actually, or Susan's brought together a group of students from diverse backgrounds, so different faculties, international students, trying to get a broad set of students there. And we don't necessarily know what the outcome will be. It's an more emergent process. It's very much based on that student lived experience and what do they need, but also facilitated by Susan herself, who's a fantastic design practitioner. And then I think, like myself, I'm involved. There's a few others involved. But yeah, if you're keen, I think you
She's
definitely...
having a meeting with me on Thursday, Alicia. You might like to come to that meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I think you definitely should be involved in some capacity based on your background.
It's with the social impact framework team. So Mitra Gush's
Mitra's team.
Yeah. So and I think, is it Diane? But it's based on, or kind of part of that student employment program that came out as a result of the financial support that was given to students that students had access to. So it's kind of like it's come out of a number of different things, and they're working on it's a co-design with students, isn't it, Tyler? Like they've got students.
So that's that earlier work that Mesha did, where she talked with students and brought out a whole lot of them belonging. And then there's a project as well, the little belonging book that students wrote. There was an assignment in DAB where the students did a whole thing around belonging, and then from that it built out from that. I think
Yeah, so it's connected to
it's all connected through.
It's all connected, like, yeah.
So Alicia is on a group, and I and Anne-Marie, I can't remember her name, are looking at belonging in the curriculum.
Yes.
So designing in the curriculum. So being aware of both things happening, and then the careers people are doing something as well around belonging.
So this is what I was talking about before, essentially, is like services are doing some fantastic work, and this group here and yourselves are doing some fantastic work looking at well-being, belonging, whatever it is, right, in curriculum. But we actually need to bridge both of those kind of aspects. Challenging because we're such a large organization and everyone's got their own little initiatives. But the thing that the system of UTS is kind of struggling with is drawing all these resources and understandings together to create a kind of aligned direction, which is what the mental health strategy what I believe that should be doing. But like in my work with Tracy on that, it's kind of been on pause. So we're trying to get that started up. And
so for Janet, Tracy Conroy, she's head of students service, equity, sorry.
Yeah. So we're kind of pressing play again on that. And I think a key part of that is this belonging piece, both in curriculum and out of curriculum.
Yeah.
And ours was on pause too, Tyler. Remember we started at the end of last year, and then Anne-Marie was involved, and then COVID hit, and then, just getting everybody online. So it has been on
maybe
pause.
It's a good time to come back together.
Yeah, I think it would be great. And if we can integrate it into, sorry, Kathy.
Well, there was a move into curriculum going into employment as well, the belonging in that aspect too. So there's these different angles and maybe it's a prong that we just have all these different parts. And
It needs to be a multi-level approach. So the different prongs are perfect. That's fantastic, but it's having that clear alignment on the top level.
Yep. Yeah. So that they all pick together. Yeah. Okay. Well,
right.
Yeah, let's figure out what that looks like.
Okay. All right. I'm going to save the comments here, and then the chat, and thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Bye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. That was great.
Yeah. They never go the same the way I think they'll go, but that's all right.
It's emergent. That's good. I think what we got to at the end there was really, really productive, because that brings us into an institutional strategy.
Well, that final part, yes, but we lost half the people, but that's okay. That's okay. Thanks, Janet, for that. And I've got another meeting starting right now, so I'll get going.
All right.
Bye bye, everyone.
See you.
Bye.